Water in the Moon by Clarence. There was water in the moon. The moon had a dullness about it, and this meant there would soon be rain. It was his father who had taught him to read the moon. It was just as reliable as the weatherman's balloon. Howard's father told him, at times even more reliable. Grown older, Howard knew there was no water in the moon, though its dulled appearance gave the impression that there might be. But the saying his father had instilled in him as a boy stayed with him, so that, upon seeing the moon like that, he would say there was water in it. And he said so now, as he watched the moon rise slowly, reluctantly, out of the sea. Around this time, in a house on a hill somewhere in a rural district, former pastor Clayton Clay and his wife were sitting on the veranda. Parasitic greenbush had eaten up the faded white paint of the house. Only one side of it had been spared. The floor of the veranda was stained blood red. Two rectangular paned windows peered out over the veranda, and the 3 steps climbing up to it. Above the varnished door, a plaque said, "Jesus is Master here." The fence was hibiscus plants clumped together. A square opening marked the entry, though there was no gate. Clayton Clay was pointing. "Ah, look, Jennifer, there's water in the moon." She knew he would go on to say how the carrots or the callaloo or something else would welcome the rain, and how rain was critical to a farmer, and how this country did not recognize the importance of farmers, and how this and how that. But Jennifer Clay was in no mood to talk about the rain or farming. Clayton could tell. She had that look about her again, and he knew it meant she was thinking about him, the young man on the waterfront. Clayton was in no mood to tussle with his wife tonight. He said, "It will come tonight, the rain, tomorrow evening latest." But Jennifer Clay only sucked her teeth and disappeared into the bedroom. She was missing her son. The truth was that for the 10 years since he'd left, she hadn't been the same. People had gone so far to say she was mad. Jennifer Clay wasn't mad. She missed her boy, and that was it. And she had come to hate some people for what they had done to him, beaten him to the edge of death that evening at the spring, beaten her only child as if they wanted to kill him. What bothered Jennifer Clay most was that she did not know if he was dead or alive, and she had blamed Clayton too, for he had been there for the second part of the beating and he hadn't tried to stop it. Back on the waterfront, a little wind came off the sea and made the young man shiver. The dull moon threw its light on the water and made a dim mirror of it. Howard was remembering now. 16, and driven by curiosity and untested desire, he had gone down to the spring that evening to meet a boy. And somebody had seen them together, and soon there was a maddening crowd. They beat and bludgeoned him as if they really wanted to kill him. And when they had sent for his father, it was as if Howard's father had wanted them to kill Howard too. Howard's father just stood there looking on as the blows continued. When Howard felt the sharp pain on his face, he knew he had to run. And he ran, the blood running down his face and into his eye. They were going to kill him. He dashed across the spring and next was running through bushes. His chest was burning like fire, but he couldn't stop. They were coming after him fast, his chest heaving. Howard felt to stop, but he couldn't. They were gaining on him. Men and boys whom he had known all his life were coming to murder him. Then, as if Providence had lent a hand at the precise moment he stumbled upon the road, the bread van appeared. He summoned his last ounce of strength and hopped onto it. There he hung on, one hand holding a railing and his body turned sideways, his head bowed and his other hand clasped across his chest, breathing hard. The bread van left him in Geisel, and he made his way to the waterfront and stepped up onto the concrete slab and lifted his hands like a soaring eagle ready to fly. And he would have done it, would have ended it all had he not heard the voice. Then he was trembling as he slowly lowered himself onto the slab so that his feet hung over the edge. He was crying, thinking that he didn't know why those urges had overwhelmed him, why he was the way he was. His father had cursed him repeatedly, how he acted like a girl, how he was under his mother's arm like her roll-on, sewing every day like a blinking girl. He didn't know why he was like that. Who or what had ordained it? What cell? What gene? What accident of birth? What defect of his mind? If he had become that way by nurture, then when did it happen? Was it at 1 or 2 or 5 years old? When was the perceived monster born? The monster, so hated that they would seek to kill him when they had known him all his life. What had made him bring such shame on his father and mother and on himself? For years afterwards, he wondered about the voice. Had there really been a voice, or had he imagined it in his confusion? But at the time, he thought the voice commanded, "You must live, boy." He changed his name. He had to sever all ties with the past. He had to forget the thing, forget everything. There were things he couldn't forget, though. Something had stirred him, and that was why he had returned there, to the waterfront. A single tear rolled down Howard's cheek. Then he rose resolutely. He was going to go back to the district whence he had fled 10 years ago. Rain birds flitted by. God had put something in them that made them know when it would rain, Clayton thought. Clayton Clay was a farmer, and as farmers always did, he turned his head up to the sky and saw it was black as his water boots. There was only a little light down towards the spring, but Clayton knew it would soon be swallowed up by blackness. Then, as farmers put it, the skies would cry. Last night, Jennifer Clay had prayed earnestly. She wanted a sign from God. She wanted to know if her son was dead or alive. She wanted to move on. This morning, her soul felt refreshed, and she sang, "Hallelujah to the Lamb." As she swept the front yard, a van drove up. Jennifer stopped sweeping as a man emerged. Clayton, sitting down on the back step, was dragging off his water boots when he heard the shout, "Glory be to the Lord! Glory! Glory! Glory!" Jennifer was running to him, running away from him, running back. 10 years of unknowing. Now they were embracing firmly, and her trembling hand was moving up to the scar on his face. At the house of the man who had inflicted that wound, a curtain moved. The man's daughter was peering through the window, and the man, blinded by diabetes, was sitting on his bed asking, "Is what?" The daughter ran back and whispered in his ear. Clayton had hurried around to the front of the yard when he heard his wife's screams and seen his son. He stood there, uncertain what to do. The rain began. Pellets of water fell hard on the mother and son, and they still embraced. The rain thundered down on rusted zinc roofs, and the water rushed through trenches cut by farmers to protect their soil from erosion. In some places, the water was scarring the land, carrying soil away, making freshets and streams and rivers run red. Dormant gullies sprang back to life. But Clayton wasn't seeing any of these things. What he saw as he looked through the window was a thick blanket of rain before him. He hadn't wanted them to chop him. He wanted them to give him a fine beating to make him know he was a man. That was all. And if it wasn't that Mr. Boris used to attend his church, he would have done something to him. And then he begged for forgiveness. Mr. Boris shouldn't have chopped Carton. The door opened and interrupted his thoughts. His wife and the son, to whom he had given the name Carlton Clay, came through the door, dripping wet. "Morning, Papa."
"Morning, Carlton,"
Clayton Clay whispered.
"I've come to look for you, Papa."
There was silence.
"I'm a designer now, Papa. I design both ladies and men clothes, and I have made a good living off it."
Carlton saw his mother's face light up with excitement and something else. It could only be pride. But he wasn't sure what to make of the look on his father's face. Like an excited schoolboy, Carlton said, "I'm coming back." And he dashed out in the pouring rain. They stood in the doorway and waited for him. And soon he returned with a few magazines wrapped in plastic and opened one.
"See here, Papa, this is my creation."
And then he turned the pages saying,
and this too."
Soon he was opening more magazines and saying the same thing. And now he was sure that what he had seen on his mother's face was pride. For the pride grew and grew until his mother was like a little girl getting her first doll. But his father's face was as fierce as a lion's. And yet Carlton thought, this would do it now. He had imagined this moment, how he would dramatically show his father he'd name a line of men's suits after him. Now he opened another magazine and flipped to the center spread and said, "See here, sir, your name is on all of these suits. I named them after you. Read here." But Mr. Clay didn't read. He said,
"You think these are the things I wanted? All I wanted was a man around me. Why you couldn't be a man, child, and do the things men do, Carlton?"
"But Papa,
did I take you to church with me?"
"Yes, sir."
"And did I show you how to live properly?"
"Yes, Papa."
"Then where did I go wrong?"
"Papa, it wasn't your fault."
"Then why you couldn't be a man?"
Jennifer Clay spoke now.
Clayton Clay, you better stop that right now. Stop it now. For if my boy is not a man, then what is he?"
Then she was in Clayton's face. But Clayton was paying her no mind. He was talking to his son again.
"You know, they took my church away from me. The church I built with my own two hands. And why? Because they said I could run my own house. They started whispering at first, then they withstood me to my face, saying my boy was a weirdo and I should relinquish my position of pastor. Yes, that's what they did to me, boy. Took away the one thing I love about farming from me. I'm sorry, Papa. Truly sorry, but..."
Carlton hesitated.
"But did you hate me so bad you wanted me dead, Papa?"
"I wanted them to give you a fine beating to get your head sorted out. That was it. But they had other ideas." Now Mr. Clay took the magazine and saw his own name. And then he saw the name Howard Robinson, master designer.
"Howard Robinson?"
he said.
"That's another story,"
Carlton said.
"I changed my name to get away from everything."
And he went on to tell them how he'd found a boy's home and how they'd taken him in and how a woman came and took him to her own home. He told them how the woman was a dressmaker, just like his mother, and how she had encouraged him in his sewing and taught him as well as his own mother had done. The rain was subsiding. Carlton had to leave. He had a flight to catch to London. But he would see them again as soon as he returned from London, he told them. Mr. Clay was reflective. Then he said,
"For you to come here after what happened to you is admirable. You honored me when all I had done was to dishonor you. You reached out to me after I did all that I did. I think I have to say that you are a man, a real man, a good man. Maybe even a better man than I am."
The Clay family was coming around into the front yard. Father and mother were accompanying the son to the vehicle when the attack occurred. The mother, startled, started to run. The son, stiffened by fright, couldn't move. The father threw himself across the son to push him out of the swing of the machete. But these men had chopped bananas and cane and butch for years, and they knew how to aim. A man who had gone to primary school with Carlton aimed for his neck. Mother and son crouched low, then kneeling on either side of the father, who lay in a pool of water. They watched him as he tried to speak. And they watched him as his feet kicked out and his eyes twitched and then became unmoving, as if they were staring up at heaven. The end.